On maternity leave and other motherhood matters, I spoke to Hadley Heath Manning. She's Director of Health Policy at the Independent Women's Forum.
Well, sometimes people hear that the United States doesn't have a paid maternity leave mandate, and they presume that American women don't have access to any paid maternity leave. But the fact is that many employers voluntarily offer paid sick leave or paid maternity leave to women because they recognize that women are a very valuable part of the American workforce, and it's better off for businesses to keep those valuable women on staff than having to replace them. So there's actually, in some cases, a business motive to providing these benefits.
So do you think there would be any benefit if the US did decide to formally have maternity leave, paid maternity leave?
No, in fact, I think there would be a consequence rather than a benefit because as we see today, American women are free to negotiate with their employers about their compensation, what type of benefits they'd like to have. Some women prefer not to have as many benefits, but to take home more cash in their salary, or to negotiate some other kind of benefit that's less tangible, like flexible hours or working from home, telecommuting. So leaving those decisions in the hands of women allows them to have the greatest diversity of options when it comes to dealing with the birth of a child and balancing their home life with their career.
Now, some would argue that not having that paid maternity leave would actually have people worrying about their jobs when they return, so some of them rush back prematurely, and that may not necessarily be the best thing for the child. What's your comment on that?
It can be very difficult for a woman to go back to work after she's given birth to a child. Some women choose to exit the workforce entirely for some time when they have young women, but that decision that they have to make about balancing their work and their home life is a very personal decision, and I would say the less government involvement, the fewer mandates we have on those choices that should be very individual for women, the better.
Now, shifting gears from countries that offer paid maternity leave to specific companies. For example, Vodafone has rolled out a global maternity plan, 16 weeks paid leave, no matter where you work. What are your thoughts on something like that?
You might think, why would a company voluntarily pay someone more than they need to or offer a benefit that's above and beyond what's necessary to get someone to come to work there? Well, in many cases, it's actually cheaper and more beneficial for a company to lower their quit and replace rate than it is to actually just provide the benefits to the workers who are already there. So when I hear about companies voluntarily offering very generous benefits, I think there must be a business motive behind that decision.
KPMG estimates that if companies around the globe adopted that similar 16-week paid maternity plan, the companies could save $19 billion. What's your reaction to that?
I understand that that's a very big figure. It's an aggregate figure, but these decisions that businesses have to make, again, they very much depend on the individual circumstance of the woman, of the job, the responsibilities of the job, how costly it is to retrain and replace someone who might be leaving that position, or how costly it is to continue to pay a woman during her maternity period, depending on her salary. So there's a lot of variables involved for businesses to consider when they're deciding what kind of compensation packages to offer their workers. And for some businesses, it is beneficial to offer those benefits. That's why many of them already do. About 82% of American employers offer some type of paid sick leave, even without any government requirement to do so. So again, this is a business decision.
Now we're going to fast forward to when these children are old enough to go to daycare. Obviously, for a lot of new mothers, that's a very big cost. In the United States, there are some daycares that cost more than college tuition. So what do you think is the solution? Some countries offer universal daycare. Is that something the US should be looking at?
I would suggest that if we want to move towards more affordable daycare for American families, then we ought to encourage a robust marketplace for those services, reduce the amount of regulation on them beyond what's very necessary for health and safety, and just allow those daycare operators to offer the best services at the lowest price and to compete with one another.
Now, Hadley, some people would argue, what's wrong with the person who's a millionaire versus the person who's, making minimum wage, having access to the same benefits? Are there really any drawbacks to that?
Well, I believe so, because when we look at the wages of someone who, for example, is a very low-wage worker, someone who maybe doesn't have a lot of education or skills, they're often at an entry-level point in the workforce. And by requiring that their employer offer, for example, health insurance benefits or paid maternity leave benefit or any other type of benefit that might be required, you're significantly raising the cost of their employment versus someone who's at the higher end of the income scale. Adding those benefits may not be of great cost to their employer because many of those workers in white-collar jobs already have access to many benefits. So the cost, when we look at the lower end of the income scale, is much higher, and making those changes could create huge disincentives to hiring those workers in the first place. And of course, we want people to have access to jobs, even if those jobs don't come with a full plate of benefits.